going to follow on one amazing fireside chat with another one, because we'll next be moving on to our superstar fireside chat, which is what the tech building immersive virtual worlds for the metaverse. And leading that is going to be our very own Steel Media's Dave Bradley, who will be joined by Morgan Tucker from Roblox. Hi Morgan, hi Dave, how are you both?
Hi Sophia, great, doing well, thank you. Yeah, how are you? It's been a great afternoon.
Yeah, not bad. Some really interesting talks. So it's been enjoyable to be the host and moderator for this one. But I will temporarily hand over these leading duties to you, Dave, to lead our superstar fireside chat. How are you, Morgan? You doing well?
Very good. Very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Good, good. Well, it's lovely to have you here. Normally I do a bit of chit chat, but I won't steal that from Dave. So I'll let Dave, you do the introductions for yourself and introduce Morgan. So I'll drift off into the background. But yeah, please do throw your questions into the Q&A function, and Dave will come to them at the end.
Yeah, we'll do. Thanks, Sophia. That's perfect. Thank you. And thank you. Welcome, Morgan. Thanks, everyone, for joining us here at Beyond Games for this fireside chat. This is brilliant. We're loving this this conference, and it's been something we've wanted to do for a long time, because we're all very much aware, I think, that the convergence of gaming, technology, and the creativity, the digital arts, music, all these experiences is the future, and we're really excited about it. And this is a great place to talk about it. And no one is more at the forefront of this, I think, than Roblox. And we're going to be talking to Morgan here. So just very briefly, I'm the COO of Steel Media. So I work with brands like Pocket Gamer and Beyond Games. You've possibly seen my name in the Meet to Match platform. And I'm going to be here chatting with our special guest this afternoon for sort of 20 minutes of chat, and then we'll take some Q&A from the audience. So please do drop those questions in. And I'm honored to welcome to the stage Morgan. So Morgan Tucker is the Senior Director of Product for the social group at Roblox. And his job is to bring together the kind of cross-functional teams to create some of those incredible visions that we've already been speaking about here on the track just during the course of the day, just the digital concerts that have been taking place. This is a chance for us to talk about how Roblox goes about building those immersive virtual worlds and just kind of what the metaverse means there. So hi, Morgan, thank you very much for joining us. Roblox has had an incredible year so far. I think it was the first direct listing on the New York Stock Exchange of the year or something you guys had, and immediately valued at over 40 billion, I think. I'm going to start just by inviting you to introduce yourself. What it is that you do, a little bit about your background. Just break the ice for us, please, and just introduce us to some of the stuff you've been doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks again for having me. I'm really excited to speak with you and the audience today. So I grew up with a steady diet of games, movies, and music, and it's really where I kind of honed in on this passion for impactful experiences. And I then went to school for audio and multimedia production, and from there I found actually the technology industry was like the best outlet for this culmination of all of these things that I love: music, movies, gaming, entertainment, etc. And so I had the good fortune to be able to work with a lot of really awesome cutting edge companies early on. I worked with Akimbo, which was the first IPTV set-top box. I worked at Whim Labs, which built the first Android wearable device. And then before I joined Roblox, I was at a company called IMVU, which was an avatar-based social network where I led up product teams that built the first mobile experiences. And that's where I really found a passion for what the metaverse could be, how we could enhance human experience, and the ability to kind of communicate in a new way via avatars and visuals. So it was a really natural transition from there to Roblox, where the scale was larger, the audience, I think, being younger and more open to these types of experiences let us really play around with a lot of new concepts in an awesome way. And so since joining Roblox, I've been leading up the social group, and this group is focused not only on all of the social networking components of the platform, but also these new experiences that we're all here to discuss, these kind of cutting edge metaverse experiences. And so our group is responsible for the Lil Nas X concert and some other things that you'll see coming in short days.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely going to talk about that concert and so on. I think for many of the people in our audience, Roblox will need no introduction, the possibilities that are there. But one of the things we're doing at this conference is people together from all across the different disciplines. And so it's possible there are some people here who aren't familiar with what makes Roblox different from a traditional game. Can you just give us a very brief overview into what the platform does and how players experience it, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So Roblox is a UGC platform. I think, one way to think about it is it's like the YouTube of interactive experiences. So nearly 100% of all of the games and experiences you see on the platform are created by the community. And that's really where the power and success of the platform has come from. The community is going to be on top of gaming and experiential trends in a way that we can't. And I think being able to sort of unlock that potential is a big deal. So Roblox offers effectively a complete technology solution in the form of Roblox Studio. People can download that for free and create these experiences and distribute them across the world instantly. So it's very powerful, but it's also easier to get into maybe than some of the other harder core IDEs or other things that are out there. Yeah.
So that's amazing. So we'll talk about some of the large scale events and things that have taken place inside Roblox. But just to kind of put a texture on what you were saying there about the user generated content side of it, anyone like just a one person on their own or a small team can create a game inside Roblox, right? And in fact monetize that even. So there are people making money from developing games that other people will then play inside Roblox, that kind of thing. That's taking place, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like one of our fundamentals within the company is to drive down the barrier to creation, period. And so whether you're an amateur or you're a professional, we want to make it as easy as possible for you to create the thing that's in your head, harness that imagination and get it into the hands of the users. And we've got some unique monetization paths on the platform. Obviously there are microtransactions, et cetera, but we've actually started in the last year or so looking at engagement-based payouts. And so you might be somebody who either doesn't know how to monetize or isn't comfortable with monetizing via microtransactions, but you're really passionate about creating the best experience possible. Well, we will reward you effectively for doing so. So if people are engaging with your game, you'll receive kind of proactive payments based on engagement on the platform.
No, that's amazing. Now, actually, in terms of what is possible with the platform, I think one of the most interesting things that you guys have done with the Metaverse idea there is you've created things like the wonderful Lil Nas X concert, right? That's a kind of been almost a kind of a defining moment in the Metaverse, really, that kind of thing. So how do you go about organizing something as complex as a superstar digital concert inside the Metaverse? I mean, there's various strands to this, but give us a bit of a flavor of what's involved behind the scenes. There's a lot that you have to do to create that experience for people, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I can walk through some of the steps at a high level, and we can get into as much detail as is necessary. But I think we really started with a fundamental premise, which is Roblox is at its core a social platform. I think the thing that makes Roblox really unique is that you have a persistent identity in the form of an avatar that follows you from experience to experience. And most of our players are engaging online with their friends. And so we were really trying to think about how can we take that to the next level and think about a large scale experience that can bring people together. And so concert was a really natural starting point. I think I'm super passionate about it. I'm a musician myself. Some of the best memories in my life are the concerts I've attended. And so we really started the creative concepting phase, thinking about what are the best and worst parts of a live concert. And then layering in this concept that with the metaverse, we don't have to just replicate reality. We can actually improve upon it, make it more efficient, make it more impactful, potentially even in certain ways. And so with that, we started to think about things like, hey, when you're at a concert and you might be in the nosebleed section and maybe you don't have a great view of the artist, you lose some of that impact and that connectivity to the performance, or somebody's in front of you and blocking your view or spills beer on you or whatever. And so we started to think about things like, hey, how can we make sure that the audience always has the perfect view of the stage or the artist or whatever the artist believes is the most important thing to be paying attention to at that time. And then one of the biggest pieces we were really focused on is this idea of a kind of reciprocal energy between the performer and the audience. I think that's one of the things that makes live events so impactful and so memorable, is that the audience does to some degree have agency over the outcome of the performance. If it's really bad and everybody in the audience is booing, it's going to throw the performer off. Or the flip side of that is if the performance is amazing and the crowd is engaged, there's an energy.
People can show their appreciation right there in real time, can't they? And that's powerful. That's a powerful force.
Yes, exactly. And so how can we synthesize that digitally and improve upon it? And so I think we sort of layered in all these like fundamentals of like, hey, we want to give players agency. We want to make sure that this is effectively the best concert experience you could have, and make sure that we are harnessing the power of the fact that you can be anywhere, do anything. You're not locked into a central stage or view. And this really gives us then an ability to harness the imagination of the artist. And so that's where we, when we started working with Nas, it was great because he's a super creative guy. If you've watched his videos, he's got an imagination that shows up. It's getting very interesting as of late as well. But we really wanted to have the audience live inside his idea of what these songs meant to him. And so it was never about a stage and a performance. It was more about immersing yourself in the music and the vision for these songs. So that was kind of in the creative stages. From there, the technology, basically we had a photogrammetry session where we capture a full body scan, got all the details, teeth, hands, etc., to make sure that it was spot on. And then shortly after that, we had a motion capture session where he donned a suit. We were capturing facial expression, and he has very complex choreographed dance moves for each of his songs. And so he had his dance crew on site, working with him as he was capturing all of this. And we wanted to make sure that it was very much him in this performance. We wanted it to be very clear that it was Nas's spirit that everybody was seeing. And so once we kind of captured those building blocks, we started to look at each of the stages and the interactivity that the audience would engage in. And I think now we come back to this premise where it wasn't enough just to put Nas on the stage and have the audience sitting there. We wanted to wrap them up in the storyline or whatever was happening. So on the first stage where he's performing, one of his biggest hits, Old Town Road, we have interactive elements like tornadoes and things like that. They're sucking people up. And I think one of the big things here is that adds a kinetic energy to the viewing of what's going on. You feel like you're in it. Everybody's moving around, and it starts to feel more like a real concert, right? Like the worst would be if you just had a bunch of avatars static sitting around a stage. It would be pretty boring. But we really tried to go the extra mile to again give players that interactivity, that agency to even control some of the outcomes of each performance within this concert.
Yeah, absolutely. So it becomes experiential. Otherwise, you might as well be watching a video of a concert, right? And I love the things that you were saying about how the metaverse can improve on reality in some respects. And I'm delighted by that. I like the idea that you're not just trying to create a simulacrum of the real world in there, because actually, we all have fond memories of going to see concerts, but actually there's no point replicating all the bad stuff of that inside Roblox, right? You don't want to be stuck behind a pillar at the far end of Wembley Stadium in the rain or something, where you could be interacting with the with the world in a different way. And I love that. Were there any kind of, you mentioned motion capture and so on. I know that your background is kind of design. Were there any other technical and design challenges that you had to overcome for this? What was the hardest part of making it real?
Yeah, so to be honest with you, because Roblox is a UGC platform, we believe that we shouldn't have kind of special access to anything. And so our goal as a development group was to act as if we were a third-party developer. And there were things that we were doing that had just never been done on a platform before. And so importing very large animation files that resulted from the motion capture, the level of fidelity on the avatar, the skinning technology that is now available on the platform. All of this was new, and we weren't quite sure whether or not it would work. And so I think in that way, though, we really were able to channel what a third-party developer would go through, like hey, we really need to smooth this thing out in studio, or we need to add this feature or tool set in the future. And so I think that was the important thing for us, is this wasn't really about Roblox creating premier experiences, and it's really more about getting the community involved as quickly as possible. And so hitting those technical challenges, understanding like where the hitches were, was really important. So I think one of the bigger ones is how many people can we have in an instance and still be performing? So our vision was to have hundreds of people. I think by the time we actually launched to the public, we were hovering around 50 people per instance, and that was because the level of interactivity in each of the stages, the builds were very complex, and so we wanted to make sure that it was still a great experience no matter what. And that actually ended up changing the scale of the environments as well, because one of the fundamental premises that we also sort of thought through was this idea of optimal kind of social density. This idea, let's go outside of this, and if you walk down a busy street and there's a bunch of restaurants, there's a line for one and then there's nobody in the next one. I think you're going to go towards the one with the line. You're going to assume that's a better experience. And so I think we kind of had that idea in mind as well. And so we kind of changed the shape of the rooms to adjust for what was, and ended up being about 50 people per instance.
Right, amazing. And that actually, these things, they're kind of bringing elements of social engineering, but also the kind of game design, the kind of level design skills. I mean, that's fascinating. In fact, I'm conscious of time. I just want to remind everyone I can see there's questions coming in, so I maybe don't have to remind everyone, but if you've got questions for Morgan, please do drop them in the Q&A box. I want to just dive into talking about some of the other things that you've done. The concert is amazing, and I think we'll see more of that taking place in the metaverse. But can you talk us through some other examples of things that you've worked inside Roblox? For instance, you have a virtual Roblox HQ, right, where you were hosted a Christmas holiday party and so on. And you've got these other sort of reference experiences that the Roblox team are creating inside that universe. Can you give us some examples and tell us maybe what else is coming?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when we all experienced this pandemic lockdown together last year, one of the things we realized really quickly is we missed congregating at our campus in person. And so our team built a virtual version of our headquarters. And it was there that we started to experiment with and layer in a lot of social feature sets. I think we've heard from our founder that we've been experimenting with spatial voice chat. We've talked about ways to collaborate in basically virtual stand-up rooms where you can use whiteboards and things like that. And so this has become ingrained now in the Roblox day-to-day, where people can actually hold their one-on-ones and their meetings in this virtual headquarters. And this allows us to dog food the experience, understand what's working, what isn't, what's needed. From here, one of the things that I'm really excited about is that we were able to pull off our holiday party within this virtual space. And at first it was like, I don't know, are people going to like this? And are we forcing it too much? But we sort of had this schedule of events where people came into the virtual space. We had the Roblox holiday band performed, and people milled about and talked, and then left and went to the Zoom version.
Right.
But then what we noticed is after the Zoom version, people were just coming back of their own accord and hanging out for a very long time. We had set up a virtual lounge and bar where people could play games or have virtual drinks. And it started to feel really natural. And I think one of the things that really stuck with me is that I have vivid memories now of the conversations I had in those spaces.
Right.
in some of the activities that I was engaged with my coworkers in ways that certainly like I don't get out of Zoom. Like these experiences end up being sort of ephemeral and float away, versus like when you're in a space experiencing things with people you care about, it really ingrains itself in your memory. And so from there, we created a virtual New York Stock Exchange that we allowed all of the employees to jump into when we were going public. And that was awesome. It's a great place to spend time and cheer and get excited. But I think through all of these experiences and really using it internally, we see the beginnings of the power of where the metaverse is going, and that it really can be anything. It's not locked to games. It's not locked to entertainment. It can be things like workplace collaboration and communication, education, fashion, anything that you can imagine has a place in the metaverse. And we're really excited. I think in the coming weeks, you'll see a couple of really big things hit.
That's amazing. I mean, I absolutely agree, and I think the ability to share an experience together is so powerful. You know, Zoom has its place, but it's like the difference between remembering a phone call with somebody and remembering going on a walk with somebody. You kind of the latter thing, you know, you're something about the participation of it makes it more memorable. You know, we've got sort of, I think Sophia will probably give us another 10 minutes before we're thrown off the stage. And I have a load of questions for you, but I see we've got sort of 7 or 8 questions coming in now from the audience. So I'm going to grab some of those if that's all right with you. And maybe we can come back to some of mine afterwards, talk a little bit about the metaverse. Yeah, so we got some questions here. So Chris says, congratulations on the IPO. That was great. It's from this year. Really phenomenal stuff. How is life as a listed company? Do you feel any different pressures? Are there any barriers, or is it more about new opportunities? I guess, you know, as a creative team, maybe that's, you know, perhaps it puts a different texture on things. What's your answer to that?
Yeah, I would say it's more about the latter. Honestly, I got to give a lot of credit to our founder, Dave, who has, he had no intention, I think, even a year ago of going public. And, you know, this was never like a flip kind of opportunity for him. He is a true believer in the vision of the metaverse and the power that Roblox provides. And so in that way, he wanted to make sure that, you know, we aren't changing really. And one of the kind of goals of the company is to always take the long view, always plan for the big thing out in the horizon, never really take shortcuts. And so I you know, was wondering if things would change after going public, but to be honest with you, not really. I think what we've seen is an influx of attention and opportunity to partner with new people, a lot of attention from folks in the industry that maybe didn't realize how big the opportunity was on the platform. And so I think it's more that now we've got a lot of incoming requests for partnerships, a lot of interest, and I'm very excited to expand both the audience of developers and the audience of consumers.
Yeah, we've got some questions about that actually, which I'll come to. Just one of my own thoughts though is all these points of intersection and points of convergence. Are you kind of thinking about or even working with partners in other creative areas? Obviously, we've talked quite a lot about music, but sport, fashion, art. What's kind of Roblox's take on those different experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think fashion is something that I'm really passionate about. In my prior life at IMVU, it was really focused on kind of creative expression with your avatar in a very like fashion forward community. And so I'm excited to get back to that here at Roblox, because I think you know, the power of democratizing fashion to, you know, millions of people around the world is really stunning. You see rapid development, either people following trends or creating trends. And I think what we're going to see in the coming years is more of this like digitally native creator path, where people, you know, they get their start in fashion, potentially creating things on platforms like Roblox, versus kind of coming around to it after the fact.
Yeah. Actually, in terms of like the community of builders and creators there, one of our attendees here, who's remained anonymous, asked the question: How do you go about incubating talent within the Roblox community? Yeah,
it's a great question, and so I think there's actually multiple answers here. Before the pandemic, we actually held incubators and accelerators on site. So we would allow people to come to the campus and work with us. We would learn from them, they would learn from us. We have a really engaged developer community, and there's a lot of proactive outreach. We have our own developer conference once a year, Roblox Developers Conference. And so, yeah, so I think that there's actually a concerted effort to work hand in hand with the community. We love the idea of spotting talent early on and really helping them achieve their potential and promise. So yeah, so it's kind of a little bit of everything. On top of that, Roblox actually a very popular topic for a lot of coding camps.
Right.
And so we actually work with a lot of these partners to help shape the curriculum and get kids excited about design and development early on.
Right. No, great. Forgive me. We have got a lot of anonymous questions. That was actually from Sarah. So Sarah, thank you for your question. Sorry. I am going to dive into an anonymous question here now, though. Someone asks, are there plans for providing higher visual fidelity experiences in Roblox? I guess that's a question about the engine and the tech. What are you developing that in that area?
Yeah, absolutely. And I if I had a visual aid, I'd love to, I could show you the evolution over the last couple of years. Sure. But the engine actually has come a long way in a short amount of time, and it will continue to improve. So I think one of the fundamental beliefs of the company as well is making sure that anyone can play. And so I think we do tend to optimize with low-end devices in mind, but building experiences that can scale. So if you've got a powerful PC, we're going to take advantage of that, so on and so forth. But yes, the graphic fidelity of the engine absolutely is marching towards improvement all the time.
Someone's asked a question here. With the large user base on Roblox, how did the Lil Nas X performance affect the popularity of the software? Have you seen people coming in now since the concert, just intrigued?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the Nas concert had over 33 million plays. It was massive. And what we saw, I think, that we hadn't seen before was like a big burst of kind of post-event engagement on social channels. So that to us, this really looked like, oh, we're now touching, I think, a little bit of an older audience, people who are engaged on Twitter or Instagram, who were really excited about it. We saw so many great stories where, a parent came in and experienced a concert with their kid, and they said, this was my kid's first concert. And they were so excited to be there with them and experience it. So yeah, I think we've definitely seen an uptick in basically our demographic range, and I think we'll expect to see that to grow in the coming years.
We've got a question here. Actually, just I want to skip ahead to this question simply because it just ties in with what you just said. Someone's asked, what's the approximate age range of Roblox users right now? I guess it's progressively getting slightly older as creators age. But the aim is presumably to extend this as broadly as possible. You mentioned there about families coming in together. Have you seen any changing in the age demographics?
Yeah, I think it looks more like growth than it does like a shift. And so I think what we've seen now is that about 18 plus users make up about 30% of our audience. And so that's grown a lot over the time. But the goal was never to kind of retarget or like move away from our core demo, which is really on the younger end of the scale, but more to expand the types of experiences you can have, the depth, et cetera, to appeal to everyone. And I think that's where we're evolving from just games into more broad-based experiences, more social experiences, entertainment, fashion, et cetera.
Actually, that makes me think as well. Obviously, this the need for shared online spaces was clearly hastened by the pandemic over the last 12 months. And this is certainly, speaking from my own experience, I've tried things online that maybe I wouldn't have done if it hadn't been for that. Games and online social experiences clearly benefited from the lockdown. Do you think things will change when real world venues open up again, or will we continue to want to have online concerts even when we're able to go to real concerts again? What's your kind of take on that in the year ahead?
Yeah, this is actually the area that I'm most excited to delve into. Right. Because I think the reality is, whether we talk about a workplace or a concert, the future isn't everything going digital or everybody like, swinging back to live, it's going to be hybridized. And I think this provides like very unique design challenges, which are my favorite, to consider, like how can you bring potentially a global digital audience into a live event venue and feel like they're part of this experience, and vice versa. How can you, again, like let's bring it back to this idea of like a hybrid work environment. How can you make sure that people that are digital feel like first-class citizens right alongside people who are actually physically present? And so I think this is where a lot of the focus in the industry, I think, will naturally go. I don't think it's going to go all digital. I don't think people are going to all of a sudden drop what they've been doing for the last year. I think it's going to be a really interesting blend of the two, and that's going to expand the horizon, the potential of both.
Right. I think we're probably at the end of our time. I see that it's 4 o'clock here in the UK. It's on the hour. Sophia, we've got other guests lined up. We've got sort of half a dozen other questions here. If we've got some more time, I can put them to you, or otherwise I'm going to suggest that people either find you on Discord or on the Meet to Match or some other way to get in touch with you, Morgan. We've got plenty of people here at the event that they might want to put them to you another way. I'll grab them from this box as well, and maybe I can email them to you for you to take a look at. Yeah. Sophia, how are we doing for time? We've got time for one more question, or are we out of time?
Oh, you're muted, Sophia.
Oh, you're muted, Sophia. Sorry.
I'm muted. The rookie error. No, I was going to say, throw in one more. You've got time for one more. We've only just clocked onto the hour on my side, so pick the one you like most, Dave, and we'll go with one last question.
Well, there's a lot of sort of high concept questions here about the metaverse and places like Roblox as a destination. So let me just grab one of the anonymous questions here. There's a few here. I can see Craig's asked a similar question. A few people kind of asking about the place that's going to be the metaverse. And I think, there's a few different destinations here we've heard this afternoon. But maybe I'll put it to you, Morgan, as the spokesperson for Roblox here. What sets Roblox apart from kind of previous online shared spaces? I mean, for several years, whether that's massively multiplayer online games or places like Second Life, there's been places to do this. But what is it that makes Roblox?
Yeah, I think we'll go back to the statement that I made earlier around the belief in lowering the barrier to creation always, and this true democratization of experience. And I think, we see, especially with the younger generation, that they look at creation as entertainment. You look to things like TikTok, et cetera, where it's just as fun to make as it is to consume. And so I think that is actually, for Roblox been around for about 17 years. It's been one of the fundamentals of the company all along. And so I think we're well positioned to harness that creative power that exists out there in the community, and let people shape and mold the metaverse in their own ways. I think like our job is not to say this is the metaverse. Our job is to really provide the platform for which people will define it.
Perfect. That's great. And I want to thank, we've got a number of questions here, including, I think I can see Craig's asked a similar question and a couple of others as well. I think we've answered that there from Morgan. Look, I'm going to give you a virtual round of applause, Morgan. You can't see from the audience here who's taking part. It's the nature of us being virtual, but you can imagine that coming for everyone. Morgan Tucker, Senior Director of Product for the social group Roblox. Morgan, that was a great talk. I really appreciate it. Hopefully we'll have you back when we do this again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Dave and Sophia. And if anybody wants to reach out to me via LinkedIn, I'm pretty visible there. So please feel free to reach out.
Thanks. And thank you. Back to you, Sophia.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you so much, Morgan. And thank you, Dave, for leading it.